Hi, in this video we will discuss colons. So let's start. On your official SAT, you're likely to see 5 to 6 questions that require you to identify and correct errors in the use of punctuation. Some tested punctuation rules involve the use of colons. Now, what are those rules? Colons are used to introduce number 1, explanations and extra information. Many upstart tech companies fail for the same reason, the lack of a market need for their products, right? So what's happening here is that we have an independent clause in the beginning, and then there is a dependent clause, right? And the dependent clause is somewhat of an explanation or provides more information about the independent clause, right? So when we have such a scenario, we can use a colon, right? So the correct sentence is many upstart tech companies fail for the same reason. Colon, the lack of market need for their products. Okay, number 2, lists. So, um, the advent of cellular biology has led to the classification of organisms into three distinct domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryota. Or, the advent of cellular biology has led to the classification of organisms into three distinct domains, bacteria, archaea, eukaryota. Right. So, whenever we are introducing a list, right, we have to use either a prepositional phrase or colons. We cannot use commas, or we cannot leave the space blank. In the first sentence, we've left the space blank. In the second sentence, we've used a comma. Let's see a correct sentence. The advent of cellular biology has led to the classification of organisms into three distinct domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryota. Right. So here we are using a colon to introduce a list. Okay, so what are the tips and strategies? Number 1, check the clause before the colon, right? So colons can only appear at the end of an independent clause. Make sure to avoid any choice in which a colon follows a clause that can't stand on its own as a sentence. An easy way to check is to replace the colon with a period. Would the first clause still make sense? Okay, so mathematics, a variety of interrelated quantitative disciplines, includes algebra, calculus, trigonometry, and more, right? So in this case, if I take out the non-essential clause, that is a variety of interrelated quantitative disciplines, let's read it again. Mathematics includes algebra, calculus, trigonometry, and more. Now, in this case, mathematics includes is not an independent clause, right? It doesn't make any sense on its own. So to use a colon, I'll have to turn it into an independent clause, which is the correct sentence. Mathematics includes a variety of interrelated quantitative disciplines: algebra, calculus, trigonometry, and more. Top tip number 2, don't introduce the ideas twice. So, a list can be introduced by a colon or by a prepositional phrase, right? But don't use both of them together. Lists are often introduced by verbs or prepositions, but we shouldn't use these in addition to a colon. Avoid choices that introduce ideas in two ways. So, widespread vaccination can fundamentally eliminate the dangers of many diseases, such as polio, measles, and tetanus. Now, such as the prepositional phrase, colon is used to introduce list. Prepositional phrase such as is also used to introduce a list. Both of them together don't make sense, right? So you use just one of them. Widespread vaccination can functionally eliminate dangers of many diseases such as polio, measles, and tetanus. Number 3, colons versus semicolons. This is interesting. The explanations colons introduce can sometimes include independent clauses. This means we could have situations in which either a semicolon or a colon could be correctly used to link two independent clauses. But don't worry, the SAT won't include a question with multiple correct answers, so there will be other errors that help differentiate between a colon and semicolon choices. Remember, a colon only needs an independent clause before it. A semicolon needs an independent clause before it and after it. right? So both of these sentences are correct. Rhode Island has the longest name of any state. Its official title is the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. And so here we have used a colon. We can also use a semicolon. Rhode Island has the longest name of any state, semicolon. Its official title is the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. The reason that we can use both colon and semicolon is that um, both of them are independent clauses, right? So colon only needs the first one to be independent clauses, so we can use a colon. And since both of them are independent clauses, they can be joined with a semicolon as well. Right, so let's do a practice question. An average bolt of lightning produces a tremendous amount of energy. Semicolon, enough power to hold a household microwave to power a household microwave for 85,000 minutes. Here, the second part of the sentence does not seem like an independent clause. Enough to power a household microwave for 85 minutes. This doesn't have a subject, right? So this isn't an independent clause, it's a dependent clause. And you can't use a semicolon to link an independent and dependent clause. The second part of the sentence also looks like an explanation, so we can use a colon. If we look at the options, option number C includes a colon, so that's why option number C is the correct option. So that's it for colons. In the next video, we will cover another punctuation